Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. What's up, guys? CJ Tenorio, shout out to you, recommending this video. I'm definitely doing this for you. I never got back until, maybe I'll do them in the future, but not until at least get done with the Caesar stuff and all that. But the Time Goes History stuff, definitely owe you one for this. And we're doing that right away. And it's a one-off, 10-minute video, and I can get right back into finishing up my other series and going full head-on into learning about Caesar. So, if you're not subscribed, my name's Connor, learning about history. Follow you guys, join the Discord. Got a bunch of topics, everything. It's all great. I just put it AFK for a second so I don't get those noise notifications. Oh, where are my manners? Suche. YouTube Suche. He's here to join us in learning about Spanish Civil War. Let's get started. Original video in the top description below. Let's go.
A war of ideology. A war of ideology. A war that introduced revolutionary technologies and tactics. A war with such human and societal cost, it would never be forgotten. No, the other one. There you go.
Margaret Thatcher?
Hello and welcome to Feature History, featuring the Spanish Civil War. It was a war that caught the eyes of politicians, media and creatives around the world. What began as the Spaniards' War was co-opted by fascists and communists of the world seeking to show the merit of their might. A proto-Cold War, if you will. The seeds of this war were planted prior to the reigns of communism and fascism. They were planted The seeds of this war were planted prior to the reigns of communism and fascism. They were planted in the 19th century. If you'd like to get a better idea of the bigger picture, you can check out Sweeney's video on the history of Spain. Also do that because I told you to. Moving on, the 19th century was a turbulent time for Spain. Opposition to the monarchy resulted in pushes for constitutional rights, liberalism, and even a short-lived republic. Combined with the destruction of the empire by the US and revolutionaries, the Spanish state was weakened and the populace disunified. Alfonso XIII, King of Spain, would launch a disastrous war against Morocco in the 1920s. This would lose him the majority support of his army, so we could just sprinkle that on top of the irritated civilians. Alfonso recognized this and so just up and left the country in 1931. The local government proclaimed itself the Second Republic, headed by Niceto Alcalá Zamora. Niceto and his committee promised change, a step into the 20th century, trade unions, land reform, secularization, women's liberation, and autonomy.
Kind of. Is Ernest Hemingway, did he... Off topic. I gotta go back. Distracted.
Niceto and his committee promised change, a step into the 20th century, trade unions, land reform, secularization, women's liberation, and autonomy for Catalonia and the Basque Country. So many revolutionary ideas at once left the right wing feeling alienated. The actual introduction of these ideas was slow. Painfully slow. Every single change left the right more concerned and the left further disappointed. Had a Great Depression and the changes became slower. The anarchist confederation named Confederación Nacional del Trabajo, or just CNT if you're not a show-off, would rally strikes, and when the Republican government cracked down, they alienated the far left. To protest, the CNT refused to participate in the 1933 general election, which, funnily enough, led to a result they were unhappy
How is that a good idea?
with. The right-wing Catholic conservative CEDA party, under Jose Maria Gil Robles y... They'll piss off. Won a majority of the
better
seats.
Than I would have.
The reforms that actually did get done were beginning to be reversed, and the military and cabinet began to be purged of leftists. The CNT retaliated in 1934 when they rallied up anarchists and communists alike to rise up in Asturias. The young general Francisco Franco was sent in and commanded the talented Army of Africa to crush the revolution. The streets turned to battlefields. The workers were eventually defeated and suffered brutal reprisals against them. The gruesome scene foreshadowed the shape of things to come. The bitter tale sparked outrage and helped unify the left. Communists, anarchists, socialists, and plain old liberals realized to combat the right they would have to stand together. The Popular Front was formed. Reactions from the right intensified.
So is this kind of why, or does this have something to do with why Spain never really took a side in World War II, or if they did, not a very active one? Is it because of the, the faction differences springing from this?
fight as well. Some believed a Jewish Bolshevik conspiracy was afoot to spread communism. The fascist Falange Party was formed by Jose Antonio Primo de Rivera. Politics was getting very violent and partisan very quickly. You couldn't just disagree with someone anymore. You had to silence them.
How familiar? Well, that means we would be right at home.
1936 general elections would result in a narrow Popular Front victory, leaving the government in favor of the left.
It looks like a skull. I'm sorry, I have to stop.
President Niceto would be exchanged in favor of Manuel Azaña. Primo de Rivera was arrested and the military was reorganized in an attempt to suppress chances of a coup. Jose Sanjuro, a man who attempted a coup in 1932, began conspiring another. He made deals with monarchists, traditionalists, fascists, nationalists, anyone and everything right-wing. The warnings of disloyalty were popping up left, right and center, sending the government into a tizzy. On the night of July 12th, things went from bad to worse. Falange gunmen shot down a socialist police officer in the capital of Madrid. The police scattered out to find and arrest anyone even slightly related. They'd asked the monarchist, Jose Calvo Sotelo, to come down to the station with them. A station he wouldn't reach. These killings made it clear this would not end politically. The coup was ready.
I thought they were just gonna like make him come down to the station, but they just killed him.
And the government was not. The people demanded to be armed, yet the end politically. The coup was ready and the government was not. The people demanded to be armed, yet the government did not wish to do so as to admit they'd lost control. Seeing as it lost control, the people armed themselves. The military coup launched in Morocco under Franco's command. Generals across Spain would rise up in every city. The police would reluctantly work with the leftists. This cooperation would result in the coup's miscarriage. Cities across the Republic would either fall or not.
Is there any bad blood between Morocco and Spain even to this day? I'm assuming just being so close to each other and across such a important strait for so long that they must have some confrontations or relationship.
Cooperation would result in the coup's miscarriage. Cities across the Republic would either fall or not, beginning to draw the front lines to a new bloody civil war. This would be a line between the Nationalists and the Republicans. The Nationalists took Seville, Castile and Leon, but the government held on to Valencia, Barcelona and most importantly, Madrid. The botched coup became drawn out. Soldier or civilian, man or woman, you were fighting. Whether that fight be one of tyranny versus freedom or righteous Christians versus godless communists. The scene was quite surreal. You'd wake up, eat breakfast, fight on the front lines, and then be home for dinner and bed. There was a darker side as well.
Do you think that this sort of do you think that this might be such a stretch, okay, but because it's so much earlier before, but do you think the Protestant Reformation sort of started a break with religion? Obviously it's Protestant, you're still you're still Christian, but I'm just curious, like, has there always been, I know, like, France, for instance, during the Napoleonic Wars was very secular, and France today is very secular. But I don't want to take too much time, but I'm wondering, like, when that sort of mainstream idea of the idea of secularism became mainstream. Like, when did a nation adopt something other than religion, I guess? That was a terrible explanation, but I hope you get my question.
Breakfast, fight on the front, man or woman, you were fighting. Whether that fight be one of tyranny versus freedom or righteous Christians versus godless communists. The scene was quite surreal. You'd wake up, eat breakfast, fight on the front lines, and then be home for dinner and bed. There was a darker side as well.
What a day.
Nationalists would methodically execute any suspected of dissent, and the leftist Republicans took it upon themselves to destroy any person or thing that represented the old ways. They took this as an opportunity to instate their own revolution. This would create some tension within the Republican side. The government wished only to survive, but communists and anarchists wished to instate their ideas of a utopia in the disorder. Their only common interest was hatred of nationalists. For those nationalists, the death of their mastermind...
Is it just me, or are there a lot of common themes between this and a lot of what's going on today around the world? Maybe it's always been that way, and you can always say this for any time. Maybe it's just in my head.
In a plane crash would throw things a bit out of whack. A junta was established. Senior General Miguel Carboneas to head it. This was, very temporary. Stepping back for a moment...
I thought it said beheaded.
Miguel Carboneas to head it.
To head it.
Very temporary.
I was like, I thought I said beheaded temporarily.
Back for a moment, the side seemed fairly even. The nationalist trump card was their disciplined Army of Africa, currently in Morocco. So how would they get the army into Spain proper? With Italian and German transports, of course. Their rebellion had the support of Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and to a degree, Portugal. It would start as supplies, but it would escalate to volunteers as the war progressed. Franco's Army of Africa would arrive in Seville and push north towards Madrid, cutting through enemy territory and brutally crushing them in the Battle of Merida in August. The nationalist territory was connected, and Franco rewarded with the title Commander-in-Chief, when he rescued his allies in the siege of Alcazar.
Isn't that where Marshal Soult was? Didn't do a very good job. Suchet was up here just doing his thing.
Franco's Army of Africa would arrive in
Suchet! You were doing your stuff, dude.
Seville and push north towards Madrid, cutting through enemy territory and brutally crushing them in the Battle of Merida in August. The nationalist territory was connected, and Franco rewarded with the title Commander-in-Chief. When he rescued his allies in the siege of Alcazar, that title would be bumped up to Caudillo, the unquestionable military head. It would be Franco's work that unified the many elements of the nationalists. The Republicans lacked this unity. The old government's cabinet would be thrown out in favor of a communist one. The communists attempted to unify the Republic in their own image. The anarchists viewed it as an affront to their revolution. Madrid would come under siege in November.
This is too similar to things I'm thinking in my head that I don't want to say yet.
And the new government retreated to Valencia. Only the passionate men and women remained to fight, adamant that the nationalists would not pass. The fervor attracted those from all around the globe to come to Spain and fight for these ideas.
I love that for some reason.
The fervor attracted those from all around the globe to come to Spain and fight for these ideas. It also attracted the Soviet Union, who began sending aid of their own. Britain and France were anxious about tossing their hat into this quickly becoming proxy war, and so agreed to a pact of non-intervention. Regardless, Madrid stood, unyielding for years. The nationalists held siege, but diverted forces to try and take everything around Madrid. They spread across the south, and in 1937 marched into the isolated Basque country. This region would become famously subject to the bombers of the Luftwaffe. The Republicans would remain firmly on the back foot after this defeat. They attempted some offensive in 1938, but every 10 meters gained would cost them 10 gallons in blood. Franco chased the Republicans.
They measured that. I'm
back across the north, pushing them to the sea and cutting their territory in two. The Republicans fought back in the Battle of Ebro, but to no avail. Perhaps they could hold out until the inevitable World War broke out, and then they'd have the support of the Allies, certainly. Well, Britain and France's appeasement of Hitler would lay a nice consistent shit on that idea.
I'm blanking on his name now. The Prime Minister of Chamberlain, Neville Chamberlain. Neville, hindsight is 2020. I know. I'm not saying I would have made a better decision if I were in your position, but you screwed the pooch on that one. You took a big old... Because of YouTube algorithms, I don't want to... Yeah.
Morale shattered, they retreated. The war was decided. Now the only thing left was to lose. 1939 dawned on an invasion into Catalonia, the anarchist homeland. Barcelona fell on January 26. In Madrid, the Republicans could still not agree. Anarchist and communist hostilities spilt out over the peace treaty. This
is America right now.
Civil war broke out within a civil war. The anarchist Segismundo Casado threw out communist Juan Negrin and began negotiations on the behalf of the Republic, but Franco accepted nothing.
He looks like a cross between Heinrich Himmler and Hideki Tojo.
Negrin and began negotiations on the behalf of the Republic, but Franco accepted nothing less than unconditional surrender. Madrid fell on March 26, and Franco announced victory on April 1st, but no, it wasn't a full. Some Republicans were lucky. They escaped or somehow hid. A lot did not, dying by either their own hand or a soldier's. Franco, as the absolute dictator, kept in check the many factions he had once unified as nationalists. He had attempted to negotiate with them, but if pressed he had no qualms purging them. The country was centralized under him. Tradition and religion held supreme. The economy was rebuilt and resurged at the expense of the worker. The monarchy was revived in 1947. Franco, of course, regent for life. What, did you think he was going to step down? He selected his heir as Juan Carlos de Bourbon in 1969, and upon Franco's death in 1975, Juan Carlos I ascended to the throne. The monarch
If
held
anyone-
no qualms purging them. The country was... He had attempted to negotiate with them. Tradition and religion held supreme. The economy was rebuilt and resurged at the expense of the work.
So, I'd like to, maybe if you guys, anyone reads this and wants to put it in my Discord, just a kind of a conversation about towards the nationalistic route or the communistic route, capitalistic route, communistic route. There always are bad things and sometimes good things on both sides, but it's curious to see which ones. I'm not saying we have to just say which one's better or anything, but just the pros and cons, I guess, of the results of each one winning. Like, say, the other side won the Spanish Civil War.
Okay.
What might the drawbacks and good things about it might be?
Monarchy was revived in 1947. Franco, of course, regent for life.
I explained that
Did
to
you
her.
think he was going to step down? He selected his heir as Juan Carlos de Bourbon in 1969, and upon Franco's death in 1975, Juan Carlos I ascended to the throne. The king would reform Spain, reviving democracy and modernizing the country. The consequences of the Civil War no longer lingered so heavily over everyone. Mourning could finally begin. The sorrow and sheer human cost of the war are still deeply remembered and felt to this day, and with that sorrow continues some hatred. The sometimes violent division between left and right remains, not only in Spain, but the world. It's just too easy to call your opponent a dangerous communist or corrupting fascist, so we could attempt
So it's not just America. Okay, that makes
discuss
you feel a little
policy,
better.
debate ethics, and reach some kind of compromise, or you could just punch someone in the face because he's a Nazi, I swears it. Well, wasn't that just a pleasant bedtime story? I'd like to thank
Yeah.
Sweeney for doing this
I'd
little
like to
old
thank
collab
you.
with me.
Oh,
We were
and
talking
whoever
about this-
supports you. Great channel. Awesome video. Don't worry. The main event, Caesar, is coming in a few days. Just finishing up, tying up some loose ends, finishing up some of these other little series I have going, then getting head first right into it. All right, great video. Join the Discord, subscribe. See you guys next time. Say bye, Suche. See you.